the funny thing about Wi-Fi nowadays, it went from something that was kind of no, it wasn't even Wi-Fi. I remember dial-up internet. No one could use the phone. You had that crunch, crunch, crunch sound
Yep.
when you're trying to use the internet. It wasn't really a thing. But now it's like essential to the point where if it doesn't work even for like 10 minutes, it's one of the most frustrating things that can happen. And even worse if you're in a care facility where it may be a converted former home, and some of the homes further up north, they're brick built. So that
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, it's not like the MDF we have in London where you could just walk through the wall if you fancied it. Uh, how do we stop like the Wi-Fi in care facilities, particularly the ones that are converted homes or even the purpose-built buildings, but they're just large? How do we have a consistent network across the organization so we don't have dead spots?
There's so many different methods. I mean, going back to what you said about the about the way homes are designed, placement of the router is quite key regarding the signal. You've always got to think about where the router lies and the signal, how it kind of goes over the entire building. Is it in a central place? What a lot of people do is put the router in a cupboard, right? And they'll close the door, and then straight away the signal is you're already struggling right there, all right? And like you said, the thickness of the walls, interference from other electronic devices is a big thing. So this is a lot of things. This is something a lot of people don't really consider. Like if you've got loads of different devices, that can cause a lot of interference. Also, a setting that is really key is the frequency that your Wi-Fi is on. So if you're in an area where there's lots of different networks that are picked up, the different frequency or what frequency that your Wi-Fi is operating on, that can really have a substantial effect on the quality of your internet. Now, going further, if you've done all of that, so you've checked for interference, you've put it in a central spot as you can, which isn't easy, because then again, you don't want people just coming up and just tripping on the router and so forth. Another thing you can do is look at some sort of range extension using what's called a mesh. So essentially there's these small nodes that you can connect together and put them in different places to boost your internet speed. It's something that I personally use and something that I would recommend, especially if you're in a large care home or a large building. If you use a mesh that extends the signal of your internet, that's probably the way to go.
Got you. So, is a mesh network the same thing as a range extender? Because again, it feels like my parents' house is the number one reference for all of my Wi-Fi issues. But I remember when we had BT as a kid, the Wi-Fi wouldn't reach all the way upstairs in the same way. So they gave us this little range extender thing that kind of looked like the old school TV aerials. It was like a bit of plastic about the size of an iPhone that
Yeah.
plugged in upstairs. Is that the same thing as a mesh network?
Not quite. So the range extender kind of boosts your signal, so to speak. A mesh, when you have multiple nodes that create a mesh, the technology is slightly different. A bit too geeky and technical for me to go into at the moment, but essentially it creates a different type of network as opposed to just extending the range. Because what you'll find is you'll have to buy another range extender for another part of the house. But meshes, the technology is a lot more advanced, so it creates a different type of network. And all these different nodes, they create the mesh that essentially does boost your signal, but it's like creating individual networks and meshing them together.
Got you. So let me see if I can understand what you just said. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like what a range extender does. It takes the existing network and just tries to push that signal a little bit further.
Yes.
What a mesh network does is that each individual router becomes its own mini network that's connected to the one before and the one after. So you've got lots of mini networks
Yeah.
that have their own signal. Because
Yeah.
I guess if we go back in we're showing our age, right? When with radio, if you're further away from the transmission, you can't hear it
Yeah.
very well. A range
Yeah.
extender would extend that range,
Yeah.
but you'll still get to a point where it doesn't work. Whereas a mesh network is like having another aerial broadcasting closer to
Yes.
you.
Yes. Essentially. So if the guts of the of the node of the individual nodes in a mesh, they're different to what you'd find in a range extender. So there's a lot more going on underneath the hood. Obviously, you'd have to pop one open to take a look, but the technology itself provides far better coverage than you would if you had a range extender. The range extender would have it's quite limited in terms of the area that it would cover. But when you have a mesh network, individual nodes, they produce a far greater area for the signal to you can connect to.
Now, this may be my limited technology brain working, but
Yeah,
it sounds like a range extender is like AM, FM radio, and the mesh network is DAB.
pretty much. For me, I would say that range extenders are okay. They're a bit like a plaster on the problem. They'll do the job, so to speak. But if you want it done properly, and you want that hip replacement, instead of wearing a support at the gym, it's best to go into the mesh and have the individual nodes placed strategically around the building.